Our world has been turned upside down. We have countless interviews and we've had to talk to countless people, but it's really worth it. I think that what we're doing is amazing, and I'm really glad to be doing it.
Now, I think it's important, Andy, you say that this was completely Grace's decision. You didn't put her up to this. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Grace came to us at the beginning of the school year, and she let us know that she wanted to go to school without wearing the mask. And I told her that that was fine, but we would look into the legality of a universal mask policy. And if we found the policy to be unlawful, then we would pursue it. If we found it to be lawful, then she would have to either decide to leave school and homeschool or go to school and comply. And what we found was that they were operating outside their authority and above our constitutional rights.
Now, Grace, you're 16 years old. High school, I don't really have very fond memories of high school. It's hard enough as it is. It's hard to fit in. It's hard to juggle everything. Has it been hard making this decision and sticking up and sticking with it?
Yeah, I've had to give up a lot of things, dance, theater, things like that, and it's in my grades. I've had to try twice as hard to keep them up. But the fight is much bigger than that, and I understand that, and I know that I will sacrifice anything for this because it matters to me more than any extracurricular activities or grades ever will.
Where does that resolve come from? I mean, you're just 16. It seems like you should be paying more attention to your activities than making a political stand. So where does that resolve come from? It honestly disgusts me to see how much power they're giving themselves. And I don't want to continue to grow up in a city or a world or a country that's like this, and I don't want to raise my kids in a country like this. And so if I fight it now, then things will be better in the future for me. Absolutely.
And for other kids too.
And how have the other students been so far?
I've had a lot of amazing support from so many students, but I've also been bullied and ridiculed and had vulgar things said to me, and it's been a lot of it's a roller coaster for sure.
I bet. So you want to cry. What was that like to see your daughter in handcuffs?
Well, it's infuriating. We tried on every level to meet with school officials as well as every level of law enforcement in our county and get their support of our constitutional rights to step in on Grace's behalf, and nobody would. On top of that, we had multiple conversations with both the school resource officers as well as their lieutenant, and they all agreed that they would not take it to that point where Grace would be arrested. And so it was really just surprising. We were caught off guard and in awe that they actually put her in handcuffs and took her out of the school.
They originally gave us some exemption request forms, and they told us that those were only accepted for 2 days until we got real medical exemption forms. And then they gave us 8 random reasons to not wear a mask, and they were all very specific. I didn't fall under any of them, and religious exemption wasn't one of them. It was all medical things, and the last 2 were something like eating and drinking, you don't have to wear a mask, and something else like that. It was just something. It was obvious that they weren't actually going to approve any real exemption forms. But then they continued to extend the due date for the actual exemption forms, and they kept accepting the exemption request forms. And so I was just waiting and waiting until they actually enforced it, and they continued to send out emails to all the families, all the parents, and all the students to say that it was going to happen. We were going to enforce it. We're going to enforce it. We're going to enforce it. Be ready. Wear a mask. And nobody listened. Over half the school was not wearing a mask until finally they enforced it, and I was the first one they enforced it upon. In
the end, we pushed them to give us evidence that they could do it, and they couldn't. And so they responded the only way that they knew how, which was to suspend her, and then it escalated to that point.
Now, we're focused on the fact that Grace was arrested, put in handcuffs that day. But the other element to this is you hear, we're on lockdown. Tell me about the lockdown and why on earth was that part of this scenario?
they said that since I had been issued a 2-day out of school suspension, I was trespassing. I was trespassing for no reason at a public school that I was enrolled in. So that's why I refused to leave. And I tried to get back to class and they wouldn't let me in. And they told me at first, my very first suspension out of 3 suspensions, I asked and they said, no, we'll never put our hands on you. We won't arrest you. Well, they were very hypocritical and they did. And
not just hypocritical, they lied to you, right?
Yes. They lied to my face. They lied to my dad's face. And the worst part about it was the superintendent just stood there and watched them do it. And when I got arrested, they had put the school in lockdown for about an hour and a half because I was considered a threat, even though I just sat in the lunchroom on the stairs. Once the school was put into lockdown, I didn't try to force my way back in at all. I just sat there and waited until they would let me in, but they never did. And day one that I started protesting it, I started thinking about what the next step was going to be. And we took it day by day, but we always thought ahead, and every single day was just a new chapter, new everything. And so I had time to like emotionally prepare myself and get ready to do these things. And when I started thinking about getting suspended, when they started threatening that, I started to emotionally prepare myself. And then that's why we originally asked the police officers the question, will you arrest me? So that I could prepare myself so that we could know how far they were going to take it. And honestly, it was just astonishing to me to see that they actually did it. And I don't know how I held myself together, but I know that afterward, I definitely felt so much more angry than I did in the moment.
How long was that whole process from like start to finish?
I started protesting masks beginning of the school year, but official suspensions started September 30th. I led a walkout on September 9th and a protest on September 9th, but it's definitely been a very long process. It's never really stopped. There wasn't really a start date. It just has always been going on since the beginning of the school year. I was taken to the jail in the back of a patrol car, but we had a group of parents, as 3 parents, 2 moms and my dad, standing out front to video my arrest because what they were doing was wrong. But they noticed the 3 of them, so they actually took me out the back. Put me in the patrol car and took me straight to the jail. My dad followed me there.
That is crazy.
And so I called the lieutenant and I reminded him of his and I's conversation that they said they would not arrest Grace. And so we kind of talked back and forth and in circles. I said, you're getting ready to arrest my daughter for not wearing a mask. And he said, that's not true. We're arresting your daughter for violating trespassing. And I said, well, it's trespassing, but she got trespassing because she failed to leave after getting suspended, and she got suspended for not wearing a mask. So in the end, you're arresting her for not wearing a mask.
Yeah, but getting caught up in the details. So did you have to sit in a jail cell then at any point, Grace, or?
No, I just sat in the lobby that you can see in the video, and they took me into a back room where they just asked me some simple medical questions, first and the last name, where I was born, things like that, just simple paperwork. And then as soon as they finished that, there was no bond, no bail, and they immediately released me right out the front door to my dad. I think that the school was trying to make an example out of me because I was the loudest one. I was the first one to lead the protest, to get my name out there, to get my face all over this whole fight. And there was, I think, 1 kid suspended right before me who's been by my side through all of it. But the second that he was suspended, he didn't want to give up his high school career. But I continued to fight because I wanted to keep fighting for all the other kids that couldn't. I got hit in the head with a baseball. I've had drinks thrown on me, vulgar things said, and teachers have also been as terrible. But at the protest, we had students driving by, flipping us off, and it got scary a couple times. Students drove so close to the curb, we thought we were going to get run over.
Wow. Now, on the flip side, have you heard encouragement or anyone that tell you, you encouraged me to be brave, anything like that?
Yeah, I've gotten so much support from parents and students, and I've gotten so many phone calls from friends and fellow students that say that they want to help. They're by my side fighting this with me, and they've donated so much money, and they've all been so helpful, and it's amazing to see them fight without actually giving everything up. I think it's really important for me to get my story out there, and I'm glad that I have a lot of supporters such as yourself, who are willing to sacrifice their time to let me share my story.
You know, in this day and age, with how political everything is, and a world divided, constantly being, throwing at us our differences, we're not exactly sure what this means for us long term, and we're afraid for safety and for Grace's safety, but we believe that what she did today is much bigger than her. And so we want to get the story out and encourage as many people as possible to take back their liberty and stand up for what's right. I mean, she's standing on righteous ground. She's done nothing wrong. And we just want the world to see that.
Okay. And then how do we find your Give, Send, Go? You want to tell people how to find this?
Yeah, it's under the name Stand With Grace, and then you can also find it on our website, which is standwithgrace.com, which also has all of our information and the link to the Give, Send, Go.
All right, standwithgrace.com. Any final words to encourage people like my daughter that are young like you?
We've always ended all of our segments with the quote from Benjamin Franklin that says, "Those who sacrifice liberty for a little freedom deserve Those who sacrifice liberty for a little safety deserve neither liberty nor safety."